It's time for Maggie and the Moms. Sponsored by Tampa General Hospital.
I love that little beat.
Yeah.
Right? Gets me going.
It's pop.
Well, by now, ladies, you have heard all the warnings. You know that technology poses risks to your children. We know the problem, but what's the solution? That digital dilemma that keeps us parents up at night is our focus today. Welcome to Maggie and the Moms, where we celebrate but never sugarcoat parenting. I don't know if we're going to solve the dilemma today, but man, we couldn't get better insight than from our two guests. Welcome, Natalie Zfat. Zfat.
You got it.
I said it right.
Yes.
Z-F-A-T.
That's it.
Natalie is a digital media expert, a social media expert, to quote the New York Times specifically. You help brands with their strategy. Some of the brands you help.
I get to work with wonderful women entrepreneurs, but also some big brands like AT&T and Timex. And yeah,
They know you. They love you. They trust you. And for this podcast, your expertise as a mom of a 3-year-old will also be insightful because you have to plan for that introduction to technology with young Theo. Margaret Zakarian is here. Her brand, Zakarian Hospitality, of which she is the president, does such a beautiful job with social media.
Thanks, Maggie.
I can say this because I follow all of your accounts.
Thank you.
Of course, celebrity chef, husband Jeffrey Zakarian, your personal account, your daughters, cookbook authors, Madeline and Anna, they're the Zakarian sisters, Zakarian Kitchen. We've talked before about how your family, like you're all master jugglers.
We are juggling a lot. I'd also like to say, like, we're both Z's.
I was
Can we just
gonna
have
say.
like a Z theme here
Yes.
today?
Look at
and
that.
are you also both Margarets?
Yeah. Oh my mind just got blown. She's Margaret. I'm Margarita.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a different
Anybody-
language, same name.
Anybody ever call you Maggie ever?
Yes, actually, growing up, there's
You've
some
been a
neighbors
Maggie.
that would call me Maggie.
All right. Well, the two Margarets and the two Z's are going to try to tackle this dilemma today because here's the thing. We've heard so much, and I appreciate all the insight that we've received as to what is happening to our kids potentially when we expose them to social media, when we hand them a phone. Their brains are not developed. We see a rise in depression. We see a rise in anxiety. There's certainly cyberbullying that happens. Even the risk of suicide goes up. So now that we have all this information as parents, a mom like me who always hesitated to allow my children to be part of that world wants to retreat even further. But I think the direction of the conversation is a good one because you also want your kids to be happy. You also want them to be kind of in tune with what's happening in the world. It's a digital world. You want them to be social. So where's the balance? And that's what I'm seeing a lot of experts talking about now. Specifically, I sent you guys an article. Becky Kennedy, Dr. Becky, she's making so much sense on this. She says that the thing that she feels is missing from the conversation is, yes, there are problems. No, you don't have to prohibit. You just have to apply boundaries. Makes so much sense.
Really hard.
It's
hard.
hard.
The whole thing is hard. It's like a whole basket of angst on
Yes.
the parent side.
So how'd you make the decision? Do you let your kids on social media? Well, I know you do for
I mean, it's a
work.
variety of things.
Okay.
So, I mean, yes, but what's also anxiety inducing is like as they age, they should be allowed
Exactly.
different. And so keeping up with like your family contract is not the same as when it was when they were 10 and then suddenly they're 13 and they're like, well, why do I have to hand in my phone at 7? I have to do my homework and I have to call my friend. And, you know, the whole homework thing plays into it where there are benefits to the phone.
Exactly.
Right? Like we couldn't call and be on FaceTime to figure out a math problem. Like that's cool.
That's right.
And that's helpful. So it's a struggle. And I guess I've just sort of like eked it out as slowly as possible.
Yeah.
And we did take like the girls had TikTok at one point and we like took it away and they've never been able to get it back. I don't know if that was the right one to limit or not, but access to all of them just felt too overwhelming for me to manage. And with the, question, it was questionable about TikTok anyways.
Right.
And the privacy access was really like, it's, if you really read into that fine print of what's happening with that one, it's a lot. So that was the one I was like, okay, no. So limiting, I try to also get it out of the bedrooms.
Yes, we
At
don't
night?
allow the phone in the bedroom at night. It's got to be plugged in somewhere I can see it. In fact, we don't allow the phone in the bedroom at all.
But how about your older daughter now?
Well, no, she's 19.
Right.
Like
So
I was telling Deanna the other day, like that goose is cooked.
Right.
Like you're on your own. We did good with that one. I trust her, and there are no rules really for her anymore. But I have a 14-year-old son, and that now is when he has been begging for years, but now is when we finally said, fine, you can have Snapchat. But man, that contract we wrote must have been 4 pages long.
But Snapchat, if you're a kid and you don't have it, it's really hard.
That's how
Like,
we
and they-
text, Mom. Texting is not a thing. That's how we communicate.
I know it's hard to hold the line.
Yes. You're not a mom of a teen yet, Natalie, but this is your world. So
Sorry, it's coming for
yeah.
I was going to say something to look forward to. Thanks, guys.
No, but you have such a healthy approach because you have seen firsthand that, yes, I'm going to say something scandalous. Tech is not the enemy of our children. It doesn't have to be. What are some benefits that you have seen?
Well, first of all, I want to say that your approach to having a contract is a really, really good one. And I think a lot of parents who are sort of giving a phone or whatever, iPad, computer to their child without any limitations or any sense of responsibilities is sort of missing the bigger picture, to your point, that exists on social media. Cyberbullying, catfishing, I mean, the dangers of online predators are extremely real. So without sort of putting those measures in place, you are giving your child access to something that could be extremely detrimental to them. It is also true that while these risks exist and are very real, there are benefits to social media. And I think we can all agree and experience communicating with friends and family and being able to, for a child, even in 2024, a 10 or 12-year-old child, learning how to have the confidence to speak into a camera, which is the new frontier we live in.
It is.
Speaking on Zoom and having webcasts and even just learning how to edit and, create videos and take a decent photo. I mean, this is the future. Those are important skills.
Coding, right?
Totally. Coding and the skills that are necessary for any line of work, including confidently speaking to a camera and developing those skills. We know kids, we know young girls, and when I was in college, who put themselves through college making beauty tutorials on YouTube. And so we don't have to necessarily look at it as only something that can be detrimental. I think we should and must look at it as something that could be a great way for your kid to sort of exercise that creative muscle, again, within the bounds of those accountability measures, including the ones you probably mandated in your contract.
You know it. You can see it in your head, can't you?
I know you.
And it's like, it's just like we have to just remember that we are their parents. And I am now approaching this social media thing just as I'm approaching everything else in the way that I parent. You do not let your kid go out and ride his bike on his own without ever having taught him that you have to wear a helmet, that you have to stop at a crosswalk and look both ways, that you have to go in well-lit areas. You can't just hand somebody something without any rules, without any guidelines, without any guardrails in place.
100%.
And so it makes so much sense.
But the problem, I think, what happened is that it was like a tsunami wave of the tech advancements. It was so fast.
That's true. We can't keep up.
And then so some people,
Yes.
in that wave, like parents, got crushed because you weren't ready. You didn't know. And it just, the onslaught of it came so fast. And now I think we're able to think like, okay.
And also, we don't know, we talked about this in the TV segment. If your kid says, can I play a video game? It doesn't have any shooting. It's just like a bowling game. You're like, sure. It could be, I'm not saying that it is, but it could be that bowling game he can play with a stranger.
Sure.
And you don't know that part because we can't possibly keep up with knowing every single thing they're doing online. And that scares me. What do we do in that scenario? Like, you just have to check their phone constantly?
Yeah. Well, I think monitoring social media and any type of game that has internet access for any child under 18 is important. I think you need the passwords and login information for any account your child has under the age of 18, and don't be shy to ask for it. We also need to check the settings on our kids' games and social media networks so that those privacy settings are so that only people who they follow and follow them can actually see their content. The geolocation settings are turned off so that if they are posting from any type of location, including your home. There is no sense to a third-party follower
Oh,
or
no,
not.
I don't even know how to check that.
Well, you can go into your Instagram settings, and I'd be happy to show you. But the notion that everything is preset before you even let your kid open the account, a lot of parents aren't doing it. They're, to your point, learning in real time or learning after there's a problem.
Exactly.
And so you just really kind of want to put those in place. I also think the concept of, an adult talking to a child, even on a game, is such a indicator of grooming and predatory behavior that we need to warn our kids about. Not every adult is going to, they're often, these predators are going to start under the guise of friendship.
Right.
And
by the way, the kid may not know it's an adult too.
often they don't. It's a catfishing situation where,
and it's not possible to know because
would you
it's
know?
all
Exactly.
like these like weird characters.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
like, it's weird.
yes.
It's weird.
It's really scary. We don't know who we're talking to. The kid certainly in many cases is not aware that, they may say that they're from another school or that they're a similar age. It could be someone 4 decades or, older. But we have to kind of remind them that you're not always talking to who you say you are. And even an adult who comes in under the guise of friendship is often not looking, definitely not looking for a friend as a child.
To me, it says on Snapchat, the whole ghost set, there's like a ghost mode, which is where it like shuts off your location. But if you don't have the ghost mode on, then like anyone that you're connected to can see basically where you are.
And most kids don't have that on.
Most people
right?
have it so everyone can see
So
where they
everyone
are,
can see.
which causes a lot of problems with girls, right?
Yep.
Like, you're in
FOMO.
real time seeing where all your friends are doing what together, which is, not normal.
Exactly.
It's not really your right to be able to see, like it just causes like a weird dynamic. And it's dangerous.
And it's
because
dangerous.
anyone, like the kids are trying to grow their followers on Snapchat to connect with as many people as they can. So they say like, oh, you're friends with so-and-so. Okay, great. I'll follow.
Yes.
So they're growing, but there have been situations in South Tampa where an adult had like infiltrated in
Oh no.
to a woman, actually like infiltrated into this group of boys, and she was posing as a teenager. She was not. So shutting off that or having the ghost mode on, I think, is so important because you don't want everyone to see where your child is
Exactly.
any time of day or what they're doing and who they're with.
Especially
It's
since you can't be sure who
totally creepy.
who is following them. Is
And
it
at night-
is it follow? Did you say followers on Snapchat?
I get maybe
I don't
that's
know.
even wrong.
Yeah,
I don't know. But,
whatever. Friends,
but even
followers.
at night, when you go on it, the kids are all, their emojis are there. They're
Yeah.
like little caricatures of
Yeah.
them, but they're like sleeping.
Oh,
They're like asleep, but they're standing like in their house, like asleep. They're
That's
like
so
little
weird.
zombies. Yeah, it's totally bizarre. So I would say that for sure, the location on anything off.
so we all agree we have to have the right settings on these devices.
Yeah.
We have to set the rules in place. Let's talk about how we enforce those rules because I think that very well-intentioned parents go through the trouble of setting the rules, making the contract, and then later not really checking that the kid is staying on top of it. And that's because we're busy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I sometimes feel like, I don't feel like it. I want to trust because I don't feel like dealing with it in the moment. So something that Dr. Becky says, and I really like, she's my new favorite person after reading this article, Time Magazine, she wrote it, look for it. She says that you have to start setting boundaries early. You have a 3-year-old. What does that mean? Mom, can I have a cupcake? No. You have to, if you can't say no to a cupcake, how are you going to say no to TikTok? When she said that, and then also your child gets used to, from early age, knowing that you set boundaries, that they can challenge you, but you have a reason why you're saying what you're saying. And that's another part of what she says is important. Listen to them, make sure they're heard, validate their feelings, don't shut them down, but then explain why you're making your decision.
Right. I mean, the average toddler, I think, hears the word no 300 times in a day. And so, it can be very disheartening when you are disciplining them or trying to set a boundary because they do have that experience constantly of being told what their desire is, what their want is not possible. I think Becky's 100% right that just like any adult would want to be validated. A child too would want their perspective to be heard. I totally appreciate that you want a cupcake. Those cupcakes look delicious. Why don't we make a plan for when we can get a cupcake later after dinner, right? This is no different than any of us talking to our spouses, our partners, our employers. We want to feel heard, even if the answer is not what we want. We want to feel that, our perspective is valid. I think that's true for technology, especially because the risk and the danger is there. So your child who, may not understand that needs to feel that you're thinking about their long-term safety and health.
And isn't that the hardest thing about parenting? Like I parent big picture, but it's so easy to get caught up in the moment. Like, I need this because everybody has this but me. My life will be ruined if I don't have this. You as the adult and as the parent have to be able to look big picture and say, in 10 years, are you going to remember that Snapchat, was a thing? Are you going to, because sleepovers, we took a very long time before we allowed even one.
Sure.
And that was hard. You're hurting my social life. And I stayed strong. And I guarantee you, when they are adults, they will not remember that they didn't have sleepovers when they were kids.
I think they'll remember that they didn't in a good way.
Hope so.
When they hear the stories, God help us all, of the things that happen when,
Nothing good happens at a sleepover.
There you
Right?
go.
It's not necessary.
It's unanimous. This board has voted.
Thank you, ladies.
I back you up on that one.
You back me up on that one. And then there was that whole thing about sleep unders, which I don't know if it ever took off, but I tried to make it take off.
I like that.
Like, I wrote about it in Tampa Bay Parenting Magazine. I talked about it
Or
on
you
Maggie
pick them
and
up
the
at like
Moms.
2 a.m.?
Yeah, you can do everything that you can do at a sleepover, except you sleep in your own bed at the end of the night.
I'm into
Who doesn't
that.
prefer their own bed?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So this is tough for me because I sometimes feel like I'm very strict. I think you guys know this by now. And I'm
I
well-intentioned.
think you're a good parent. Let's rephrase that.
Okay, thank
You're
you.
a very caring parent.
But how do you know? What is your gauge when you're making a parenting decision, a big parenting decision like social media or a phone? What is your gauge? Because sometimes I wonder, my kids are either going to turn out amazing or they're going to be in major therapy because I was so strict.
Okay.
This is me asking for therapy now.
No, I also, I think I put myself in that strict camp, which is not really the popular camp to be in. But I think the gauge is like each child themselves, right? Like, I have a 10-year-old to two 15 and 17-year-olds. Also, the time that you're in and the place that you're in. The 17-year-old, she had no digital anything because she grew up in a time where it hadn't really come yet. Compared to George, it's like constant because that's what we're living in. So what does he see? What does he know? What is he doing? And is whatever I'm going to allow him to do a benefit? Is it keeping him safer? Is it helping his development? Is it making him feel self-confident? All of those things, and try to fit the puzzle pieces together. And if not, then not. And you just, like you said, you have to be okay that it's not going to be the popular choice, right? And I've said, my oldest has made me eat my words. I said early on, I said to her once, it's not my job to be your friend.
Yes.
It's my job to be your mom.
Yes.
And that, I think, kind of stung. And she's reminding me, you said you didn't want to be my friend. I'm like, no, that's not what I meant.
That's not what I meant.
Take what they want. They leave the rest.
Right. So it's okay. And you just have to pray that, when they come around the other side in adulthood, that they'll be thankful.
Yeah, that they know that you're
having their best interest at heart.
Long-term view. My husband and I talk about that all the time. We are all about doing the hard thing. That's, to me, where there's a benefit. Because when you do something that's difficult, but you reap a reward, I feel like then it encourages you to keep living your life that way and reaping the many rewards that come with doing the hard thing, because most people won't do the hard thing. So they won't have
we've
the
had
same rewards.
hiccups where there's been contract violations, so to speak, over the years. And another mother gave me a piece of advice. Instead of just punishing, have them add something. So you're not just taking away and making them take the phone away or make them sit in the room or they're grounded, but what can they do outwardly? How can you help the community?
Oh.
Pick a community service. donate some of your time outside the house to do something for someone else.
Wow.
And that honestly proved to be some of the most effective things that the kids did and loved and added to society in like a positive way versus just a punishment.
That is so great.
And so that was a great piece of advice that I received that I would recommend onwards.
And something that we do too is we try not to call it a punishment. We try to call it a consequence of your behavior, because I want my kids, well, my son, because like I said, the other one's fully
Adult.
I want my son to know that if you do something, there will be a consequence. It's either a consequence or a reward will come from every single thing that you do in your life. It's going to be one or the other.
Sure.
And I think that that's a better way to look at it. Like if I work really hard and study for this test, the reward will be, the grade. The consequence will be, if I don't, will be the bad grade. So I like to look at everything as rewards and consequences in my own life too. Yeah. Right?
How does he feel about that?
How does he feel about that? You know what? I think that he appreciates, believe it or not, when I give him what's the word? Organization or
guardrails?
Yes. Even though he complains, I feel like because he does start to feel the reward. Like kids, I think, want structure. They may complain, but when their lives are organized, when your life is organized, aren't you much happier?
Sure.
So I feel like when I force him to do the thing that he doesn't want to do, he's always glad he did.
And do you think it's also instituting a feeling underneath in the subconscious, like my parents really care about me?
I hope
like
so.
he know, like you know. And then as you get to be a bit older, you start to see kids that can do anything they want. It seems appealing, but then they start to understand, like, maybe that they're not paying attention as much. They're not, you're really in it with him, and that builds, I think, an underlying feeling of confidence and support.
Yes.
So
yes, thank you, ladies. I want to talk briefly before we wrap up about social media, because you two have a unique perspective because of your jobs. So because it's such a big part of your profession, does that influence your kids in any way? Like, do you do things differently because of your professions when it comes to social media with your children?
I mean, my son, as we've talked about, is only 3, so he's not, eligible, or it's not appropriate for him to be on a phone on social media. But I would say that because I am on social media for a living and I'm constantly using my phones and computer and devices throughout the day, I try when I'm with him to sort of not, and to be more mindful, because I think that the sort of default is that I'm on my phone. Not it's not a sort of more of an art than a science, but I think the thing we're trying to teach our children about boundaries and moderation cannot be taught if they are seeing us glued to our phones. And we all do it. We are all, whether it's like, I'm just letting the, doctor's office know we're running later. Like, it could actually be something productive for the kid. But if you want to teach that, I think you need to be able to show that you yourself do not live and breathe by the sort of device in your pocket or in your purse.
Yeah, I just wondered if that's more challenging for you. I'm sure it must be.
I mean, honestly, I think, I'm probably on my phone the least of anyone I know, because
Really?
I'm so sick of it by the end of the day. But you know what? There's still moments, just like everyone else, where you're like, I need to practice what I preach. I need to put my phone away. I need to, whatever it is, like write down a list of stuff I have to do rather than be beholden to the thing I, have in my notes app, or, there's the way you suggested. I like the redirect of like, okay, my kid wants to be on the phone or whatever, I'm going to suggest a community project. Like, anytime the opportunity to watch a movie or to be on the phone or comes up, I'll often say, like, can I set you up for art? Do you want to do Play-Doh? Do you want to do I have these like colorful sand things, and do you want to do some sensory stuff? Just like, let's find a way to be connected to the things around us as the default, and let technology be the sort of, unique addition from time to time, not the default.
And what I worry about is that when they want to be on their phones, chatting with a friend or whatever they're doing, they're not with that friend in person. Like that person to person interaction, socializing that we all had, that's kind of dead. or hampered severely because of these phones.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you could say, okay, so you're talking to Johnny. Why don't you go and ride your bike with Johnny? Or I don't know.
It's hard because on the flip side, when they are at home and you can't run them,
True. You can't take him to Johnny's house.
or you can't have 3 kids in your house, now suddenly that's like an upside of Fortnite. Like the boys are playing together for a half an hour where he would have just been sitting by himself.
Right. Right.
It's a trick. It's
It is.
tricky.
It is. Moderation. I guess we keep going back to
know.
that. And for you, because you have all your social media and it's such a big part of what you do, how do you navigate that with the kids? Because it's a very important part of your life.
Well, I would say we always ask if we're going to post something, even on the girls' accounts. Like they have to, if they're not posting it themselves, they have to approve it and make sure they like the photo. I think that's super important.
Wonderful.
And that's like
Mhm.
showing respect,
Totally.
of everybody. And it has to, the same, like how you act in person needs to be reflected. And the expectations I have for you in person needs to be reflected on social. Like it's not like Girls Gone Wild time on
Yes.
your Instagram account. It's not
Yes.
an opportunity for you to look as old and mature and suggestive as you can, where you see a lot of other accounts and girls and 20-year-old girls or the sorority accounts. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, but
Mhm.
that's they're looking up to those. That's not a forum to act like that, in my opinion. So if you're not gonna act like that in real life, you're not allowed to act like that. Like you're not going to be allowed to act like that. Not that they want to, but it's like your same family values in real life need to apply
Imagine that.
online, whether you're commenting or, all of that. So, and if you're seeing something, bullying or whatever, same rules apply. Like help out your friend.
Yeah.
I've seen now a little bit these teen years, luckily not my children, but posting photos that seem really cool with like kids having drinks in their hand. And
Mhm.
you're like, hello.
I've seen it.
Yeah. Sure.
This is public. This is not private. This is public forum. Like you can get your college, offer revoked. You can get kicked off your sports team. You can get kicked out of school.
Right.
So they're still developing brains no matter how much you tell them.
They're going to make
Again,
mistakes.
I'm not talking about my kids specifically. I'm just saying in
but
general,
they're gonna make
teenagers are
mistakes.
just
Yes.
not
Yes.
like they're meant to make mistakes.
Yes.
But social is so hard because it's
Permanent
for everybody
mistakes.
to see. So I try to really emulate what as a family we want in real life in our social accounts. And way back I was like anti-social, like going
Mhm.
many years ago. And someone, Celia Chen, her name was. If you're listening, Celia, thanks to you. But she said like you can choose to not do this, but there's an entire conversation going on about you or the restaurants, and you're not even able to comment in because you're not even part of the conversation.
Right.
So you need to get in a business sense, like
Sure.
you need to get in there and help steer the conversation about your brand or what's going on. So I was like, okay. And then we kind of migrated in
And we
made the
have
jump.
brought it full circle. That's what I think the solution is. It's not staying away for fear. It's diving in responsibly, safely, and with boundaries. I feel better.
We're healing.
We're healing. All right. So I always like to end with a question that I ask every single mom, myself included. I'm calling it Ask Me Anything. So today's question was inspired by, saw on the Today Show, they talked about a TikTok that's hilarious. Well, I don't know if it's hilarious or mortifying. I thought it was funny. So the mom gets the text from the teacher that none of us ever wants to get. It says, Johnny, I'm going back to Johnny. Johnny came up to me and gave me this and asked me, what is this?
Oh my God.
Don't worry, I didn't tell him. I just disposed of it. And there was a photo of a condom still in its wrapper that a 5-year-old kindergartner presented to his teacher and said, teacher, what is this?
Found where, by the way?
Right.
I
it
read
said
about it
5-year-old
and it
find
was
it.
in his pocket. He said it was in his pocket.
What?
Yeah. So the mom later went on to explain
Oh my God.
that maybe when they bought the jeans as a prank, a teenager had put that in the pocket.
What?
No judgment.
Wow.
Johnny's
That's a
mom. No
stretch.
judgment to Johnny's mom. But anyway, so my question to you is, what is something that should have been private that your child made public, or something just embarrassing and mortifying like that they have said, Margaret?
Okay, so one embarrassing thing I wanted to just we were applying to schools in Manhattan with one of my children, and the admissions person at the end of the interview said, "We would, wouldn't you be so excited to go to school here?" And this one of my 3 children said, "No." And I was like, I want to literally, I mean, it's like so cutthroat to begin with.
What
And I was like,
age?
she was 4.
Okay.
At
she can be
5,
forgiven.
4, 5, and they're like, no, really, aren't you so? Wouldn't you be so excited? We'd be so happy to have you. She's like, no,
Still no.
double no.
Didn't wind up going there, I presume?
No,
or yes?
she did go
She
there,
Okay.
and we talked in the car about, how could that, when you say things, how does it make someone else feel? And maybe it's a gift you even were able to have an interview.
Yes.
The whole thing. You need to write a thank you note. Like,
Oh my gosh. You know what's funny? We had almost the exact experience here in Tampa. We came from Miami, looked at 2 schools, and after the tour, my son, who was starting 2nd grade, the admissions person asked him, "What did you think of the tour?" And he said, "I liked yesterday's school better."
Oh my God.
Amazing. And it always boils
And he
down
wound
to
up going to that school also, because luckily she found the humor in it.
Yes.
But in the car, we're like, why did you say that? And he says, "Mom, you told me I could never go wrong telling the truth."
Wow. Called you.
Called me on it. What's your embarrassing thing?
So first of all, loving these stories. And
See what you have to look forward to.
I was going to say so much to look forward to here. There's so many things that Theo, my delicious, very honest 3-year-old, says to constantly keep me on my toes. But I am a single mom, so one of the things that happens is like he's just always with me and in every setting, and so he's very familiar. For example, if I put like a pad in my purse, he'll be like, "Oh, mommy's on her period." Like he knows the difference between a tampon and a pad. He's just very aware.
I love that.
Yes, I do too. However,
but
when we go places, and this isn't just one time, this is like a reoccurring theme, he will tell someone, "My mommy is on her period.
Oh, no.
Her belly was hurting earlier. She's not feeling her best." It is just a monologue about my menstrual cycle.
Oh my God.
And God bless him. And I actually, in a way, I'm always stunned and shocked, but then I have to like center myself and be like, this is a good thing. He is not, he's a kid aware of like what's going on. These are not things we should keep secret, perhaps. They're like part of life and every day.
Let's normalize talking about
our
periods. Yes, and our sons understanding and knowing
the nuance.
I'm into that, yeah.
Right?
I mean, yeah,
We're
it's
about
good.
that. All right.
I'm into that.
Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was so much fun having you here. And I love, because I have you on Maggie and the Moms on the TV segment all the time, but doesn't it feel like here we can let things breathe and take our time? And I love that. And I love your insight as always. Thanks.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks
for having us.
Yeah,
All
thanks
right.
for having us.
I'm new at this podcast thing, but I want to say one more thing.
Oh,
Ready?
sure.
I wrote it down.
Okay.
We're here every Thursday. Every Thursday, we're here at 12:30 on WFLAnow.com. Subscribe and like us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can rewatch this anytime on YouTube. Woo woo! Thank you, ladies.
job.
Thank you, Brody. Hi, Deanna. She's over there.